Hello and welcome to Aging is for Everyone. I'm Laura Mondello and I'm your host for the show. Well, immigration is certainly all over the news these days. You pretty much can't turn on a newscast without hearing about it. And a big focus is on illegal immigrants to this country. What we don't hear a lot about are the folks who are refugees, who are coming here to escape persecution. We don't hear about the folks who are coming to the United States for a better way of life for their families. We tend to only hear the bad stuff. So today our whole show is going to focus on immigration. And I'm very happy to welcome Matthew Kolken, who is an immigration attorney with the firm of Kolken Kolken. It's great to have you here, Matthew.
It's wonderful to be here.
Yeah. We talked a little bit, I just mentioned, people come into the United States in different ways. People come here to, escape other countries, and some of them are called asylees, refugees. Can you tell me a little bit about some of the what we call people who come here?
Well, there's two basic categories. There's immigrants, people who are coming here to live permanently, and there's non-immigrants, people who are coming here for a temporary stated purpose and then plan on leaving the country and go home. And then there's refugees, who are individuals who are fleeing persecution in their home country. That's the general overview. So,
right.
So people can either have a preconceived intention to live here permanently, and they have been issued a visa, a permanent visa through the U.S. Department of State, and they can come here and then take up permanent residence. Or if someone is coming here hypothetically as a student or as they have some sort of a work visa, that would be a non-immigrant category that would allow them to come to the U.S. for a stated period of time for a stated purpose.
Right, right. So if somebody is coming here, say as a refugee, how does that work? How does somebody get to come to the United States?
Well, the general way for someone to come here as a refugee isn't necessarily the way that someone typically applies for asylum. If an individual is escaping their country and there's a settled government there, they're usually doing everything in their power to get themselves out of the country and may get to the United States either through a visitor's visa or through getting themselves to a third country and then Canada or Mexico and coming to the U.S. either legally or illegally. And then once they're in the United States, they'll make their application for asylum if they are fearing persecution. Alternatively, they can make the application at the U.S. Department of State abroad. But that's it's a very high standard, and many of the individuals that are fleeing persecution are concerned if they make that application before the consulate, it's going to be denied and they're going to be turned over to their home government. Although that's not necessarily the case, those are the concerns that they have. So they're just trying to get out and get here and then ask for help. Right,
right. And a lot of people seem to come here, the asylees, they come in illegally into the Buffalo area. Is that because we're close to Canada?
Well, yes, many do come here illegally, but many, meaning they either obtain fraudulent documents in order to gain admission to the United States, or they snuck into the United States in the back of a car or something along those lines. But there are many people that come here legally. They obtain a visitor's visa. I have seen many instances where individuals apply for a visitor's visa. When they're inside the U.S., they then ask the government for help by submitting their application. The law requires them to apply within 1 year of their admission to the country. Or alternatively, individuals will come as visitors or students or however they may or have arranged to get here and then never leave, and then ultimately they're caught, and then they make the application before an immigration judge.
Okay, okay. Now, what kind of things does somebody have to prove in order to stay here?
Well, they have to prove that they're going to be a target of persecution. They have to have an immutable characteristic, something about themselves that they can't change. Their race, their religion, their political beliefs, their membership in a particular social group. If they have one of those characteristics and they are a target for persecution on account of that characteristic by the government of their home country, or if not the government, a group within the country that the government is either unable or unwilling to protect them from, then they can show that either they've been a victim of persecution in the past, or that if they have never been harmed in the past, that there are people that are similarly situated to them back home that are being persecuted, so there's a reasonable likelihood if they go back home, they'll fall into that group and will be a victim.
Right, right. So they basically have to prove that if they are sent back.
It's a very high standard.
Yeah.
And you have to, first of all, if an individual is fleeing persecution in their home country, they're not stopping to collect documents.
Right.
they're trying to save their lives.
Right.
So when they get here, they may have very little other than the clothes on their back, if they're lucky to have that much. Wow. Oftentimes they don't speak the language, and there are extremely high hurdles from a burden of proof perspective that they must overcome in order to be able to obtain asylum in the United States. Statistics show that you have a better chance to gain asylum if you come here and apply within your first year of lawful admission affirmatively rather than defensively before the immigration judges. And across the country, the approval rates of asylum before the immigration judges varies greatly. There's some that approve upwards to 90% and some that deny upwards to 90%.
Wow.
They call it the asylum roulette wheel. You never know which judge you're going to get depending on where you are, especially in New York City, where there's so many judges and so many asylum applications being submitted.
That's amazing that it just depends on which judge you might come up against.
It's amazing. One of the first things that most practitioners do when they have an asylum case is they go to Syracuse University's has a department called Track Immigration, and they have tracked the asylum statistics for virtually all the immigration judges nationwide, and you find out which judge you got, and then you can give your client a better understanding of what the likelihood of success would be in presenting the application.
Now, what types of things would mean that the person couldn't stay in the United States?
With regards to eligibility for asylum?
Right.
Well, as I said, the law requires you to file within 1 year. If not, you're statutorily precluded. If you have obtained safe harbor in a third country prior to coming to the United States, you're deemed to be firmly resettled. The U.S. won't protect someone where a third country has protected you. And criminal grounds of removal. If someone has a particularly serious crime or something called an aggravated felony, they aren't eligible for asylum, and they could potentially file for a backup form of relief called withholding of removal. Those are the typical obstacles that someone would see if they're applying for asylum that would prevent them from being able to obtain it.
Okay, so there's really a lot that people have gone through in order to come here.
They've risked everything, including their lives.
And that's definitely something that we want our viewers to really think about when they see some of these folks.
Well, my wife's family, they were refugees, and they're all citizens now from Soviet Russia, and they didn't leave Soviet Russia because they were looking for a bigger house. Right, right.
Well, thank you so much for being with us, Matt. We really appreciate it.
It was my pleasure.
We'll be right back with more Aging is for Everyone.